Welcome to this tutorial on how to join granny squares as you go. This is one of 3 videos I'm doing on how to join granny squares as you go. This technique that I'm showing you now is shown in a different video, the same with this one, and finally this is the method I'm going to show you in this video. And in this method what you do is substituting the chains between the double crochet stitches with slip stitches. So you're going to do slip stitches between the 3 double crochet stitches when you're attaching instead of doing chains between, and in that way you're attaching to the chain spaces on the opposite sides granny squares. Let's start. I've started a little bit by working as I normally would do along 3 edges of the first granny square, and now we're going to attach the next granny square upwards as I'm showing you now. Then we're going to work along the edge. Then we're going to attach 2 more granny squares on top, and then we'll work around that granny squares as usual, and then we're going to work upwards and attach between the 2 granny squares, and finally we will work along the edges of the granny squares and meet up where we started. So to start, I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to do 3 double crochets in the corner of the granny square I'm attaching. I'm going to find the first chain space on the opposite side's granny square, and I'm going to do a slip stitch into it. So I'm placing the hook from the front to the back, yarning over and doing a slip stitch. And in that way I've started to attach the granny square to the other granny square. I'm doing 3 double crochets again into the chain space of the granny square I'm attaching. And next I'm going to do a slip stitch into the next chain space on the opposite side's granny square. The hook goes in front and the yarn behind, and I'll do a slip stitch. Repeating that, doing 3 double crochets into the next chain space. And then you'll do a slip stitch again in the next chain 2 space. So the hook goes in front, the yarn goes in the back, and you do a slip stitch. And you can see how it looks after you've finished 3 repeats, and you can see there's small spaces between each of the double crochet clusters, and you're going to do it exactly the same way in the corner, doing 3 double crochets. And after you finish the 3 double crochets, you'll do a slip stitch into the corner chain space of the opposite side's granny square. And then this is how it looks after you've attached the first time, how you've worked around and upwards, connecting the 2 granny squares together. You will see that they're not fully connected, but you'll have kind of chain spaces between them or gaps between them. Next you'll do 3 double crochets in the same corners chain space, and you'll work as a regular granny square along the edge until the end, and I'll catch you at the end of this row to show you how to continue working. When you do this, in this example I'm going to have the width of 2 granny squares. However, you can add as many granny squares as you'd like to the side, and I'm going to show you how you'll do that. first I'm showing you how to add another row, which is what I'm going to do in this tutorial. However, if you were going to make it wider, you would work down and then up and then along the edge and attach more granny squares as you go. But we will do 2 granny squares widthwise and 2 rows of granny squares on this tutorial. And you can also add as many rows as you'd like, but I'm just going to do 2 on this tutorial. So we start with 3 double crochets in the corner chain space of the next granny square. And next I'm going to turn my work so you can see how I'm attaching it on top and starting a new row. And I'll do a slip stitch into the first chain 2 space. The hook goes in front and the yarn goes behind, and I'll do a slip stitch. And then I'll do 3 double crochets into the next chain space of the granny square I'm working on. And you'll continue doing that along the edge until you meet the corner again, doing slip stitches in each of the chain 2 spaces and 3 double crochets on the granny square you're working on. In the corner, you will do a slip stitch into the chain 2 corner space, and the same with the next one, because we're attaching another one along the same edge now. So recapping, this is how we've worked along the edges so far, and we're ready to add another granny square and work along that edge and attaching it to the granny square as we go. So doing 3 double crochets into the corner chain space, what's so nice about this technique is that you don't have to cut any yarn and you save a lot of time crocheting instead of seaming the granny squares together. Doing a slip stitch in the chain 2 space. This is by far what I would call the easiest method of the 3 I'm showing, because it's just a quick slip stitch instead of the 2 chains between the groups of 3 double crochets. The other 2 methods might take a little more getting used to, but I also find them maybe looking a little bit nicer, so it's just up to you what you prefer. At the corner, do a slip stitch into the corner chain space and do a chain 1 and work 3 double crochets into the corner again when we continue. So this is how it works so far, going up, down, and we've gone along this full row to attach granny squares, and we're going to work as regular around 3 edges of the next granny square. So this is working just as you would do with any granny square, doing 3 double crochets, then chains between. And we've reached the corner and we work along 2 edges now, and we'll turn our work and work as regular down towards the center of this crochet piece before we will continue along the other edges. So we're doing this edge as normal, and I'll catch you in the middles to show you how to work through the middle with slip stitches into the corner chain spaces. So we're doing 3 double crochets into the corner of the granny square we're working on. Then we're ready to attach them through the 2 corner chain spaces of the 2 other granny squares. We'll do a slip stitch and another slip stitch in the next corner, and along the next edge we're going to do the join as we go method to attach the 2 granny squares together. So we'll do 3 double crochets into the corner chain space, we're going to do a slip stitch into the chain 2 space of the opposite side's granny square, and repeat doing 3 double crochets into this chain space, and you're going to continue doing it the exact same way along the full edge, and I'll jump to the corner to catch you there. And we've attached to the corner, we'll do 3 double crochets into the corner and work as a regular granny square along the edge on the top here. And we've reached the next corner, and we're ready to turn our work and work along the top edge, or the current top edge. And I'll catch you and show you how to work into the seam between 2 granny squares as you work along the outer edge of your project. You'll do a chain 2 and slip stitch into the space between, and then do chain 2 before you do 3 double crochets into the next corner. So this is how you're going to work through any seam. If you have a smaller or big, probably not smaller, but if you have a bigger piece, you'll do that each time you reach a seam like that. And this is how it looks. And what you're going to do now is work along the top edge and down along the side of the project as a regular granny square. And we have the final edge left. And this is how we work the seam, doing 3 double crochets into the corner, chain 2, slip stitch into the space between the 2 granny squares, and then chain 2 and do 3 double crochets into the corner chain space again. Repeat that anytime you reach a seam like that, and I'll catch you at the end of this granny square as we will join with where we started our project with a slip stitch. Doing 3 double crochets, chaining 2, and do a slip stitch in the first double crochet you made at the beginning of this project. And now it's time to recap how we worked this, and just take a quick look at how it looks. We started there, we worked up, and we attached along this long edge. We worked as regular, and then we attached, and then we worked as regular along the last 2 edges. Thank you so much for watching this Join as you go method, and I hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice day.